Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our January onX Hunt 101 Masterclass. We'll get rolling into the class here in just a minute, but while we wait for everybody to get logged in and get situated, we're just going to go over a few housekeeping items. So first things first, your audio and video are turned off, so we can't see you, we can't hear you. No worries if you have any noise in the background or anything like that. If you do have questions, we do have a member of our customer support team who is answering them in the Q&A box. So down towards, depending on your device, on most of them, it'll be at the bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A feature. That's a great spot for that, for if you'd like to ask any questions, anything like that. And this class is being recorded, so you can view it later if you would like. If you have to drop off early, anything like that, we will email it out to you tomorrow so that you can either catch up on something that you missed, or rewatch something that you want to re-see again. So you'll have that recording in your email tomorrow evening. Finally, we are doing a giveaway at the end of this class. We're giving away some onX Hunt gear like we do at just about all of our master classes. So we'll post that giveaway link in the chat towards the end of the class, and you'll be able to get entered there. So let's get into the agenda for the day. First off, we're going to talk about the different membership levels of the onX Hunt app and what each one of them gets you and how they differ. Then we'll get into the app. We'll really get into kind of the nuts and bolts of how to use the app and how to turn on different information. We'll start with map layers. We'll get into some of the kind of in the field tools using offline maps, waypoints, tracker, things like that. We'll talk about some of the different location features within the app, for lack of a better term, and using the compass mode. And we'll go over some of our different base map and imagery options. We'll talk about how to perform a search. I know that's one question we get pretty much every class is, hey, can I search for coordinates, or can I mark a waypoint with a set of pre-existing coordinates? Yes, you can. We'll show you during that section of the class. And then we'll try to save some time for some Q&A and that giveaway at the end as well. So these classes typically run about 90 minutes or so. There's a lot in here. This is a 101 class, so we're not going to get into every single aspect of the app. There's just not enough time. The goal of this class is so that you can kind of start off maybe not feeling super comfortable with the app. Maybe you're that type of person who says, man, I kind of use it, but I know there's stuff I'm missing or stuff I'm not using. The goal is to help you take that next step, and so that you could go out this weekend and feel confident using the app, and that you're going to be able to find the information you need, find where you are, not get lost, all those sorts of things. So I am going to stop sharing here right now, and I'm going to pull up the map on my tablet. So it'll be 1 second. The tablet always has a bit of a delay here. There we are. Maybe not. This seems to want to do this the first time I share every time. We'll try one more time. There we go. Now I'm on an iPad here, so if you're able and you can follow along on a mobile device, I highly recommend that. I understand majority of folks are probably tuning in on a mobile device, so it's not really an option. But if you are watching, from a laptop or a desktop computer, and you can pull up your phone or tablet, I highly recommend that. This is on an iPad, so if you have an iPhone, things will look very similar. If you're on an Android device, you might notice a few small differences just in how some of the styling is, how some of the buttons look. Everything works exactly the same. It's just a little bit of a different look from Android to iOS. So do your best, to follow along there. So let's start off with some of the different membership options within the onX Hunt app. Your kind of first option is our free version, which we call a basic membership. Now, a basic membership basically gets you a map with satellite imagery on it. You're not really able to see any of the map layers that show property ownership or anything like that, or different hunt units. What you're basically looking at is a satellite view of the map. How you get a basic membership is if you start a trial membership and then let that expire, meaning you have a 7-day trial, and then after those 7 days, you elect not to purchase a membership, then you go to a basic member. If you had a paid membership and it expires or you cancel it, then you go to a basic membership. So that's how you would get that basic membership. There's not a whole lot to talk about with the basic. Like I said, it's a free version. You don't really have access to any of the tools or anything like that. So if you do elect to purchase a membership, you have a couple of different options. The first option is a premium membership, and there's actually there's two different levels to the premium membership. There's a 1-state and there's a 2-state membership. So the premium 1-state membership gets you access to map layers for 1 state. So say it's your home state is Michigan, that's where you hunt. You don't hunt anywhere else, and you just kind of want the basic map functionality. Premium 1-state membership will get you there. The 2-state membership, like it sounds, gets you 1 additional state. So that was a membership level we created in response to folks who said, hey, I don't need all the bells and whistles, but I hunt 2 states. I hunt Michigan and Ohio. I live right on the border. Or, I hunt Michigan, but every year I go up to South Dakota and go pheasant hunting. I really just want to have access to those 2 states. So that's the premium 2-state membership. It just lets you add an additional state. And then our kind of full spectrum membership is our elite membership. So the elite membership gets you access to map layers for all 50 states. So you get the land ownership information, public and private, all of the walk-in areas if a state has that program, any state-specific layers for all 50 states. Plus you get the data we have for Canada. Now, Canada is not as fleshed out as the United States data set is at this point. We're working on it. The data laws and everything in Canada are totally different than the United States. So getting private parcel data and stuff there is a different beast altogether. But we do have the Crown land, we have guide areas, the different management zones and things like that. So if you hunt Canada at all, Elite's the way to go for that. Elite also gets you access to some different map tools, some of which we'll talk about tonight, things like TerrainX, some different imagery options, which I'll go over in a bit. And it also gets you access to what we call elite benefits or pro deals or pro benefits. So there's kind of a couple different categories to them with that elite membership. Some of them are just a straight up discount on hunting gear, whether it's, Silencer Central, Mossy Oak, First Light, Schnee and Lacrosse boots, Final Rise, Upland Bird vests, Weatherby shotguns and rifles, bunch of different stuff in there. Some of those deals are so good you can, the elite membership's $100. You can save $100 on some of those deals, be it through optics or boots, things like that. You also get access to a bunch of different learning modules or classes. So we have a shed hunters course in there, a turkey hunting course in there. We have some dog training courses, both pointer and retriever specific. We've got some elk hunting courses, whitetail deer hunting courses, all kinds of different educational type content in there that comes with your elite membership. So take a look at that. I don't mean this to be like a sales pitch, but I think especially that I love that educational content. I work at onX and I view it all the time. So take a look at that if you're interested. All right, let's get into the actual map now. So what I have on my screen here is showing my location in Midtown Missoula, Montana. I'm going to zoom out a little bit Missoula's where we're based here. So my blue dot there is where I'm at. As I zoom in a bit, you see information starting to appear on my map. I can see red boxes or orange boxes, kind of depends on your perspective, with some names inside of them. So that's the private lands data that's showing for me. All of the layers, like the private lands layer, live in the hunt map layers menu. Okay. I saw somebody put a message in there says we don't see my map. Um, is everybody not seeing my map? I'm seeing a bunch of messages, people saying they can see it. Thank you for confirming. If you're not seeing it, it might be a setting on your device. You may have to leave the webinar and come back in. Apologies, I'm not able to troubleshoot more specifically right now. We're going to roll on. All right. So the private land ownership layer lives in the hunt map layers section of the app. Find that in the lower left-hand corner. So I'm going to tap on the button that says hunt map layers. That's going to pull up this card. All of your layers live in a folder or a collection. The first one on my app is Montana. That's the state I'm located in. I can see right below Montana, it tells me I have 4 of 9 layers turned on. So we have 9 map layers for Montana, 4 of which are turned on. Every state's going to have a little bit of a different number depending on some of the different data that we get from the state and some of the different types of programs like walk-in programs. We'll get to those in a bit. So all of these layers can be turned on or off just by tapping that green switch on the right-hand side. So private lands, I can turn that off. So as I toggle that, take a look at my map, you can see the difference there. My private lands go away. So that's a fairly common thing we hear from onX users. You know, when I'm talking to people at trade shows or people call into our customer support, they'll say, I'm not able to see landowners. What's up? What gives? I paid for the membership, but I'm not seeing private lands information, and they think something's broken. Fairly often, that layer just got turned off. So if something doesn't look right on your map, if you think you're missing some information, the first place you should check is your map layers. Make sure everything's turned on that you want turned on. Conversely, if your map is showing you something you don't want to see, we'll talk about some of the common layers that cause problems in a bit. But if you're like, man, I don't know what this is, there's a weird coloration or like a weird filter, looks like there's fog on my map, anything like that, go through your layers and double check. And you can just toggle them on and off, and that'll kind of give you a sense of what's causing that coloration if that's something you don't want to see. All right, so private lands, I'm going to zoom out a bit. And I'm going to move to the east of town here and talk about the government lands layer. So the private lands, you remember, were all had the red box around it with the name inside of it. Government lands are all going to have a coloration on them. And these are pretty well mirrored to if you've ever used like a paper surface map that you maybe got from like a BLM office or Forest Service office or something like that. We tried to match the coloration of that. So land is a different color depending on who like the managing agency is. For example, there's a lot of green here. That is going to be your Forest Service land. Blue, like this square, is state land, state of Montana. Some of this is city land nearby here. If I go up the river here a little bit, this yellow portion is BLM land. If I go up to the Flathead Reservation, tribal lands are this kind of darker yellow, almost tan color. If I go up to Glacier National Park, national parks are purple. Military installations are going to be pink. Fish and Wildlife Service is kind of a brighter green color. Okay. If you're not sure what it is on your map, what it's showing, the best thing to do is to tap on the map. We call that querying the map or performing a map query. So when you tap on the map, you're going to have this information card that comes up and tells you a little bit more about that spot. And the information that shows in this card is a little bit dependent on what layers you have turned on. I have the government lands layer turned on right here, so it's telling me this is government land, this is Lolo National Forest. It's got that green color, right? If I scroll down, it tells me a little bit more information. Tells me the hunt unit, because I have that layer turned on. We'll get to those in a bit. But if you look here, I can tap on this blue land, tells me state of Montana. If I go up to the reservation here, it's going to tell me Flathead Reservation, that's tribal land. Okay, so one of the key takeaways, if you take nothing else away from this class tonight, is if you don't know what something is on the map, the first thing you should do is tap on it. That's going to tell you more information in 9 times out of 10. Okay. The same thing goes for if you want more information about a private parcel. So if I zoom in here and tap on this private parcel, it's going to tell me who the owner is. In this case, it's 0.6 LLC. You know, you're going to find sometimes it's going to say John Doe, whoever the owner is. It might have an LLC. It might be like a family trust. There's all kinds of different, ownership names on land, whether it's a private business or just one person owns it, etc. You also are given the tax address here. So that is the address where that property gets its taxes. It's not necessarily the street address of that parcel. So this is useful, especially when we're looking at like gaining hunting permissions, especially in, rural areas. Maybe there's a field, it's got a ton of snow geese landing in it, and you want to try to hunt it. Nobody lives there, right? But if you tap on that field, you're going to get the tax address for the owner. So wherever they get their mail, you can use that tax address to try to track down a phone number potentially, or to send a letter to people. This is a great time. Most of the country, besides, South, we're in Montana. A lot of the South still has hunting seasons going on, but the Midwest, Montana, a lot of the Rocky Mountains, Northeast, hunting seasons are mostly wrapped up. This is a great time to start asking for permission for next year. So if you're like, man, I saw a ton of deer on this guy's place last year, or man, I'd really like to walk that for pheasants or duck hunt there. People get a lot of people asking for permission August, September, October, November. If you're January, February, March asking for permission, you might have some more success. So that's a free hot tip there. Zooming back out. So we've covered government lands, we've covered private lands. I want to talk about hunting units. Every state calls these something different. Okay, so if I go back into map layers, again, bottom left-hand corner, go into Montana, and I have this hunting districts layer. When I zoom out, you see these green boxes or green shapes all over my map. Those are our hunting districts in Montana. Some states call them hunt areas. Some of them, they're deer permit areas or deer zones, game management units, all basically the same thing, right? So your state might not say hunting districts, might have different verbiage in there. What's important to note here is that a lot of states have different units or different zones for different species. So right now, we're kind of coming into, for Western big game hunters, we're coming into application season. Wyoming, we hear about quite a bit because Wyoming has different areas for different species. I'm going to turn on Wyoming right now so you can see what I'm looking at. I'm going to move my map there. That went too fast. So right now, Montana is the only state I have turned on. Since I have an elite membership here, I can turn on additional states. I'm just scrolling down all the way down to Wyoming. Tap the button. Now Wyoming is turned on for me. So when I tap on the Wyoming folder to open it up, I see Wyoming hunt areas, and there's that button there that says view options. Click on that. I can see if I expand this menu, mule deer hunt areas is selected by default. Wyoming has a elk application deadline for non-residents coming up the end of this month. So if you're interested in applying for elk in Wyoming, for example, and you're looking at the map, what we often hear from people is, hey, your guys' units are wrong. I'm looking at unit 89 and it doesn't match what's showing, in the Wyoming Game and Fish Handbook. That's because that person has the mule deer units, mule deer areas turned on. If I flip it to elk hunt units, you see that changes. So if I zoom out, you can see this a little better, right? You see the numbers change when I go to all these different species. I'm personally going to apply for antelope in Wyoming this year. So I'm going to turn on the antelope hunt areas. So something to double check there, especially Western folks, this is more of a thing. But even in, I grew up in Minnesota, bear areas are different than deer areas. There's different trapping areas, different waterfowl zones. So make sure you have the proper one turned on there so that you know what you're looking at there. Going back to Montana, I'm gonna move my map back. Couple other layers I want to touch on real quick before we move on. The block management layer. So block management is our state's public access program. So it allows public hunting access to private land. Last I checked, it was more than half the states in the union have a program similar to this. Everybody calls it something different. Some states call it Access Yes, or it's just walk-in areas. North Dakota, it's plots land. Kansas is WEHA, walk-in hunter access. Everyone's a little different. And again, not every state has this, but a lot of them do. So this is another one. If I zoom in on a block management area here, it has a black box with red dots inside of it. So this is a block management or a walk-in area, if you prefer that vernacular, that is open to hunting. Okay. If I turn this layer off, you can see it disappears. If I want to find out more information about this area, again, I just tap on it, tells me the owner. If I scroll down, it tells me the name of this block management area, Grass Valley. It's open until today. Today's the last day. We have an archery whitetail tag in the river bottom here that closes January 15th. So that's when this block management unit closes, when the last kind of open hunting season in the area closes. Tells me the status, the number, and the type. If you want to find out more information, we will link you to the State Fish and Game website where applicable. So on this, if I wanted to get more information about this area, I would go to that link where it says area info, visit website. That's going to take me to Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, to their website where they have, they're the source of truth, right? They're the folks that administer this program. So that will take you to all the rules and regulations for this area. So different walk-in areas have different rules. Some will be closed on certain days of the week. Some will not allow hunting of certain game animals, right? It might just be, hey, just white-tailed deer here, but not elk, not bear. They might have rules as far as motorized vehicle use, as far as the amount of people allowed per day, where you're allowed to park, things like that. Some stuff that we're not able to show on the map as easily. We're going to link you to the source of truth so that you're able to follow all the rules and regulations of the program there. Back into hunt map layers, there's a few other ones in here. In Montana, I'm not going to go over. I want to scroll down to some of these other folders: current conditions, land and access, roads, trails, and rec, trees, crops, soil, wildlife layers. These are all nationwide layers, meaning they're not state specific, but everybody with a paid membership has access to them. So current conditions, for example, the active wildfire layer, if you have a paid membership, you have access to this, and it's not specific to your state. So, what's in the news right now? The unfortunate fires in the Los Angeles area. So this is the Palisades fire. this is what this layer does and what it looks like. You're going to have, if I zoom out here, you're going to see red fire icons showing you where a fire is burning. And for the larger fires, we're going to have a perimeter showing you the extent of the fire. Sometimes a fire starts and it takes a little bit of time for a perimeter to get established. Sometimes the responding agency never establishes a perimeter. So you're not going to see this type of symbology on every fire, but kind of the big ones, the ones that burn a while, we're generally going to have that for you. Like I talked about earlier, if you want to learn more information, tap on the map. So this is going to give you the name of the fire, Palisades. It's going to tell you when we last checked the data source for updated information, and we're going to tell you when they last updated. Now, we check this multiple times a day. I think it's 4 times a day. So it's every like 6 hours we ping that source, right? So we last checked today and the source was updated today. So you know that this is within a few hours of what was reported. You'll find a lot of fires where we check January 15th, but for example, there might have been a fire and the source hadn't updated since January 10th, just because they haven't been able to update that data. So you know, hey, 5 days, chances are something's different, right? So something to take a look at. It's going to tell you how much acreage is burned and what percent contained it is. So this one's only at 19%. Okay, you know, there's a couple other fires here. Here's one that doesn't have a perimeter. Sometimes this time of year, let's see if I go up north, you might see some like this one. It has an RX in front of it in Idaho. So that's going to be a prescribed burn. Prescribed burns don't have perimeters because it's not a wildfire. It's under control, hopefully as a prescribed burn. You can still tap on it, get more information. You know, it says an approved perimeter has not yet been released. A lot of times these prescribed burns, they're fuel reduction burns, they're habitat improvement burns, things like that. A lot of times they happen late fall through the winter into early spring before things start drying out again. So again, this is a layer we sometimes hear from people. They're like, man, I know there's fire burning in Colorado, but I can't find my active wildfires layer because it's not a state-specific layer. So it lives under the current conditions there. And you don't have to have elite to see fires across the country. As long as you have a paid membership, you're able to see that. There's a few other layers in here. Don't have the time to go over. I just wanted to call some of them out if you wanted to take a look at them. The CWD zones and locations. So if you're hunting in an area with chronic wasting disease, it's going to show you those areas that have shown a positive test, and will also show you in states that have testing locations or have maybe like a dumpster where you can drop the remains so that to hopefully reduce the spread. We're going to list those on there as well. A fairly new one we have is this cell coverage map. So this one's pretty sweet. It's going to show you cell coverage. You can choose Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. It's going to tell you what kind of coverage you can expect in an area. So as I zoom in, this area is 4G. As I get farther out, voice only. So that's pretty cool, and that one's pretty new to give you a sense of what kind of cell service might I expect where I am. Is there anything? Is there, might I just only be able to make a call? Or do I have full 5G and I can upload an Instagram story and show everybody all the cool stuff that I'm doing? So I am going to turn that one off to clear my map up. Let's go down to land and access. Couple of them in here. The wilderness areas should be turned on by default. That's going to look, it can be a little bit tough to see, but if I zoom out, you see the coloration over the Welcome Creek wilderness here. It's a little bit different, has kind of a hash marked on it. So that's going to be your federally designated like Big W wilderness, like the Frank Church, the Bob Marshall, places like that. The Fish and Wildlife Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas. If you look at the center of my map, as I turn that on and off, you can see this refuge south of town here. This is a refuge that allows hunting, but it has some stricter rules or different rules than the rest of that deer, or excuse me, that hunting district. So this is a unit that only allows waterfowl hunting and white-tailed deer with archery equipment, and they have different zones for it. So this layer helps you see those zones. There's a no hunting zone. This is the waterfowl zone, and here's the archery zone. And again, if you want to learn more information, tap on the map, scroll down, hit that visit website link. It's going to take you to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service website. This is for the Lee Metcalf Refuge south of Missoula. It'll tell you all the rules and regulations there. Couple more layers. Again, land and access. A lot of these I think of as like scouting layers, grazing allotments on public lands to see where grazing might be going on. You can turn on the sections layer in here. If you're in a state when you're reporting a harvest and you need to have section, township, and range, you can turn that on. The slope angle is another great one. I'll just show it briefly. That shows you kind of a heat map of how steep the terrain is. So these are the Bitterroot Mountains, fairly steep, at least for our part of the country, and shows you kind of green being the least steep, up to yellow, orange, red, purple being the steepest. So again, not something I use in the field ever, but something I use when I'm scouting quite a bit. If I close out a land and access, I'm gonna go to roads, trails, and rec. There's a few layers in here I want to show as well. So I'm just gonna get to Mount Sentinel, east of Missoula. Here's a popular hiking area. There's a lot of trails. If I turn off all of my layers, the mountain looks relatively blank. I wouldn't necessarily know that there's trails here. If I turn on that trails layer, it starts to paint a bit of a different picture, shows me the location of all those as well as the names, Sentinel Ridge Trail, Hellgate Ridgeline, Hellgate Canyon. If I turn on slope, now it tells me a bit more. How steep are these trails? Just like the slope angle layer, green is the flattest, red is the most steep. So this ridgeline trail here, pretty darn steep, right? The switchback up to the M trail, still fairly steep. It's a popular hiking trail here, but you're in the orange and yellow. I get to some of these other trails. You see, I got flatter sections here. So use that when you're planning out. Are you somebody who wants to get away from people? People probably aren't hiking the red trails as much as they are the green ones. Are you a person who doesn't really want to go up that steep of a trail? Pick the greens and the yellows. I can turn on trail mileage as well. Gives me the estimated mileage between two given points on the map. Recreation sites is another one I always have turned on. So that is going to show you things like old mines, campsites, water accesses, boat ramps, things like that. It's going to show you, here's the U.S. Forest Service has a lab. It'll show you, we even have breweries in there. Different points of interest, different recreation sites. So that's another one I always have turned on. It doesn't take up too much space on my map. TH, that's a trailhead. So some good information there. The last layer I want to talk about here is this motorized roads and trails. So if you're in an area that has some public land and you hunt it, this is a layer I would have turned on all the time. And it's not one that is turned on by default. You do have to manually go in and turn it on yourself. So as I toggle it, you see those purple and white lines on my screen there. Those are, just like the name says, motorized roads. If I tap on them, I can get some more information. So as I scroll down, and this is really the power of this layer here. It's going to tell me the name of the road. It's going to tell me what kind of vehicle can access this road. Some of these roads will have a width restriction. They might be dirt bike only. They might be just that single track only for dirt bikes. So at least I know, hey, don't try to take your car up there, dummy. It's not going to work. Some of them are ATV and they have like a 50-inch width restriction. So if you see that, your full size tricked out side by side, your Razor, your Can-Am or whatever, probably going to be too wide for that. But if you got a regular ATV or the skinnier side by sides, 50-inch width, you're good to go. Overland, that farthest one on the left there, that's going to be your kind of biggest, most well-maintained roads. Overland means to me, I drive a pickup truck. That road's probably going to be okay for me. Now, of course, it's the mountains, it's remote areas. Doesn't mean it's going to be a great road, but legally I can go on it, right? High clearance 4x4, that's something where there's not a width restriction on it, but it's not as well maintained. There might be some rocks, some potholes. So your standard, F-150 might not make it on a road like that. You might need, a Jeep or a 4Runner or Tacoma or something with some aftermarket parts on it, or, an F-150 with some aftermarket lift kit, big tires, things like that. The other important thing in this data is the open dates. So a lot of these roads will close seasonally. This one in question is open year round, technically. I don't think you'd get a car up there right now with all the snow, but there's not a locked gate preventing you from trying. Some of these do have a locked gate preventing you from trying. Let me see if I know one offhand. I think this one closes. So there's one that is closed right now and won't open until May 16th. So double check before you go so that you don't drive out and see a locked gate and you just wasted a whole bunch of gas and time. That layer allows you to prevent that from happening. All right, we're half an hour in and we've only talked about layers. There's a lot of map layers in here. I don't know when the last time somebody added them up, but we've got hundreds of map layers. My recommendation, the second biggest thing I want you to take away from this class is, man, just spend time playing around with layers. Try turning them on and off. This trees, crops, and soil, we don't have time to go into it right now. It's a bit beyond the scope of 101. I did a specific class on it last year. You can find that on our YouTube channel. Turn these on for your scouting. Check out the crops. Check out the tree species. Roads, trails, and rec, that roadless area layer is great for doing some scouting. Land and access, I talked about a bunch of these. There's nothing you can do in the app that can't be undone. I sometimes talk with people, they have a little bit of trepidation on just not wanting to wreck something, not wanting to accidentally make a mistake. There's not too many mistakes you can make within the app, right? Any layer you turn on can be turned off. Any layer that gets turned off can be turned back on. So spend some time. The more time you spend in the app, the more comfortable you're going to be. It might be a little bit slow going at first. I mean, this is a pretty complex, powerful piece of software here. But just like getting a new bow or a new shotgun or a new rifle, you're not going to wait until season to take it out for the first time. So spend some time playing around in it. Our whole goal is to help you be more efficient when you're in the field so that you can enjoy, those best days of the year when you get to go out hunting. The more familiar you are with this, the more you're going to be able to, the less time you're going to be standing there with your phone in your hand when you're out hunting and you should be, hiking or watching for ducks or something, and you're playing with the app. The more efficient you can be now, the better off you're going to be in the fall. All right, I'll step off my soapbox on that. Let's talk about the times when we don't have cell service. What do we do? Another question we get. Jack, this app is awesome, but where I hunt, there's no cell service. Well, guess what? Me too. I hunt northern Minnesota every year. I hunt primarily western Montana, which is where I live, and I might do some bird hunting in eastern Montana and the Dakotas. Not a ton of cell service in a lot of those places. So So what do? I use offline maps. So in the lower left-hand corner, below where it says Hunt Map Layers is a button that says Offline Maps. I tap on that, it's going to bring up this menu, and yours might look a little bit different. You might not have all of these things listed down below, like Livingston, ND, Eastern Montana. We'll get to those in a minute. I'm going to zoom out. I'm just going to go to Wyoming, go to a spot that doesn't have a map saved. And let's say this is an area I'm going to go hunting next year. I'm going to tap New Map. Now, this is starting the process of saving a map for offline use for when I don't have service. So once I tap Save New Map, I have a red box now on my map that's showing the area to be saved. I can still adjust it. So I'm just using one finger on my screen right now. I'm moving it around. Oops. For some reason, whenever I'm running Zoom and onX, it doesn't like it. It kind of overpowers this older tablet here. So let me get this. Let's just say I want this whole corner of Wyoming. I'm going to line the box up with the boundary with South Dakota and Montana. And then I can choose my size. Now, by default, your medium map that's what's chosen by default, is the medium detail map. If I want more detail, meaning crisper satellite imagery, I can click the high map detail map. Now you notice it's quite a bit smaller. So as you go up in detail level, you go down in size. So it kind of depends where you're hunting and what you're hunting, at least in my opinion. Personally, for me, 90% of the time I use these medium detail maps. I've never found having slightly less crisp satellite imagery downloaded. I've never really found that to be a hindrance to me when I'm out hunting. I can never say, in 6-7 years of hunting the West, I can never really say, man, if I had a slightly better imagery, I would have killed that buck, or we'd have gotten those birds, or anything like that. So I personally use the medium most of the time, especially if I'm doing something like pronghorn hunting, upland bird hunting, even a lot of times elk hunting, active hunting, where I might be covering a lot of miles, either by foot or by car or truck, especially car or truck. So this here, you can see it lets me save a whole bunch of different hunt areas, a bunch of different units in Wyoming. Maybe I'm upland bird hunting and we're going to be bopping around to a bunch of different spots. That's why I like it. When I go to Minnesota and I'm hunting my family deer camp, that's when I use the high detail, because we're hunting a small area. Our hunt area might only be 2 miles north to south and maybe a mile wide, which is honestly quite big. We're hunting a mix of public and private. If you're hunting Uncle Joe's back 40, you certainly don't need a huge map, especially if you know this is where we're hunting. We're not going anywhere else. So you can use these high detail maps and get a little bit better imagery, and it's typically going to be a little bit smaller download size. Let's talk about low detail maps. As I zoom out, you can see, man, I can get like 3/4 of Wyoming and a bunch of Montana in this low detail map. These are maps that I use as backups. So a map of that size is not going to have very crisp, highly detailed satellite imagery downloaded with it. You're going to get the public and private lands. You're going to get any of the layers that you have turned on. You're going to get the hunt areas, all that information. But as far as using the satellite imagery, not so great. So I'll use this as a backup. Like I said, last year I had an antelope tag in southeastern Montana. I saved a whole bunch of different medium maps and I put them together so that it was like a grid pattern to cover my area. But I also saved this low detail one just in case I ended up going to an area where I didn't have a map saved. Now, it doesn't happen very often. In fact, I never used it last year, but it's a nice backup to have. So that's what I think of those. Don't use a low one as your primary map. You can overlap maps. You can have maps within maps. that's fine. You can save a big one, then save a smaller one, and then save a smaller one, all within each other like Russian nesting dolls. That works fine too. People do that quite often. All right, so I'm going to zoom back in here. I've got this map about where I want it. I recommend naming your maps as well, especially once you get more into the system and years go by. If you just leave the default name, that doesn't mean anything to you. So in this one, I'm just going to name it Wyoming. And it's in the northeast corner. Name it Wyoming NE. Hit the save button. That's going to start downloading that map. That's what that green box is. That's showing me where that map is downloading. If I want to save more of that area, let's say I might be heading south, I can go back in. I can save, hit new map again. I can use the lines from before. It might be faint on your side, but on my end, I can see the green box of the last map I saved. I can grid them together. I'm going to name this Wyoming East because we're not quite as north, and hit save. Now I have those two maps that I can use. You can see I've previously done it. Other parts of Wyoming, Montana, I've got maps saved all over the place on this account. Okay. Once you have a map saved, if you look down below, you're going to see that menu showing all of your different maps saved. Now you might be noticing some of these look different than others, and some of my boxes on my map screen look different. Some are green, and some have red and white candy stripes on them. That red and white striped map means that map is not available for offline use. There's a couple ways you could get into that situation. So here's a map. I'm going to go up to this Fort Peck North map. You'll also notice down below where it says Fort Peck North, there's not a green check mark next to it. Green means go. Green check mark means that map is good and ready to go. This one has an arrow pointing down next to it. That means that that area, that map data is not saved to this tablet. So say, for example, you have a tablet and you have a phone. You run onX on both of them. You can do that with your account. You don't need to buy separate ones. Let's say you're sitting in the recliner at home, you're doing a bunch of scouting and you're saving a bunch of offline maps on your tablet. Great. That's what I do as well. But when you pull your phone up, those maps aren't automatically downloaded to your phone as well. It's device specific. So if you download a bunch of maps on your tablet and pull them up on your phone, they're going to look like this with the red and white stripes. You need to then download that map data to, the internal storage on your phone. To do that, tap that down arrow. That's going to start that download for you. Another way you could get into this situation, we hear from people who get a new phone sometimes. If your phone breaks or you're just ready to upgrade and you get a new one, everything's going to transfer as far as your app, your membership, your waypoints, but your offline maps won't. So the app will remember the boundaries. The app will remember where you had all those boxes, but it's not going to save the aerial imagery and the layers, for example. So you'd have to go in on your new phone and re-download all of those new maps there. Those are the two most common scenarios we see. The last thing, and this is one you would potentially do on purpose, is you can offload these maps. You can remove that map data, but still keep the perimeter, still keep the boundary. So for example, let's say once a year you go to, you go to Louisiana and you go duck hunting, but you do that trip for 1 week out of the year. You save an offline map, you go to your duck hunt, you have a great time, awesome. You go home, you don't really need that map anymore. Let's say you want to clear up some storage on your phone. These maps can be a couple gigabytes sometimes, depending. Say you want to save up some space, you can tap on that map. I'm going to go to this one here that says Missoula West, okay? Let's pretend this is our Louisiana map for this example. I don't need this anymore. But I'm going to go back next year. So I want to maybe save. I don't want to have to go through all the steps of re-downloading it. What I'm going to do for this Missoula West map, I'm going to tap on those three lines to the right, or three dots, excuse me. Three dots to the right. I have a couple of options here. If I tap remove from device, that's going to remove all the downloaded information, but keep the perimeter. So that, all right, great. I go about my year, 51 weeks pass. I haven't used this map at all. It hasn't taken up space, but now I'm heading back to Louisiana and I want to save this information, or I want to be able to see all this stuff offline. Tap that down arrow. It's going to re-download it for me. Okay. Last thing to mention on offline maps, or I guess second to last thing, some of these maps you see say update available. What that means is some of the map data has changed in that area, but it's not reflected in what you have currently downloaded. So let's say that I download all my maps August 15th, and I download all of my offline maps, but I haven't updated them since. Now it's January 15th. Well, the mapping team here at onX has been doing updates to the map data. Most commonly, what's going to change is going to be your private parcels, usually just the owner name change. Sometimes the perimeters, the parcel lines do. Maybe, this is the time of year when game and fish commissions and fish and wildlife departments might be doing, hey, we got to adjust the boundaries of this unit a little bit or split this unit. Those regulations come out in the spring through the summer. Maybe a unit changed, right? You need to update your offline maps for that data to be reflected, for that change to be reflected on your map. So this one in the Big Snowies, for example, I just tapped on it. It brought me over there. It says update available. Couple ways to update it. Tap the green circle. That will start doing it. If I go to this one that says Northwest Montana, I could also go to those three dots we were at before and hit update. Say you want to do all of them at once. Go to the far upper right-hand corner of this menu, tap the three dots and hit update all maps. So what that's going to do is it's just going to queue them up. So it'll download your first map, then your second, third, and just run through them automatically. That's what I do sometimes. Just when I'm sitting at the office, I'll go in once a month, update all my maps. If it's hunting season, I probably do it once a week. Do you really need to? In most cases, probably not as often as Jack does it. Do it at least once a year. Do it when you think about it, but don't sweat it. I've heard from a person one time, I felt bad about this. They said, man, we were driving out hunting. It was Saturday morning and my map said update available. So I had to pull over and find Wi-Fi at a McDonald's to update it. So we got out there late. Do not do that. If it says update available, you can still use the map, right? It's not like it's not going to work for you out there. It's got that green circle. It's going to work. Just means something's changed there. 99 times out of 100, it's probably not going to be mission critical for your hunt. Update it when you think about it. All right. Couple more things on offline maps, some questions we get. When you're out of service, there's a couple ways you can kind of utilize these maps. I can tap this go offline button. That puts my map into offline mode and it tells my app, stop trying to use the cell signal to load up map information. Use the downloads that are already in the storage to pull up that information. To go back online, just tap the button again. Personally, I almost never use this go offline button. What I personally do is I use airplane mode on my phone. There's a couple of reasons why I use airplane mode. Airplane mode is going to automatically put the app into that offline mode, so it knows to utilize those offline maps. It's also going to save my battery quite a bit. So one of the top ways you can save your battery when you're out in the field is to use airplane mode. One of the biggest draws on your phone or device's battery is if it's searching for signal. Doesn't matter if you're in a no signal area or a weak signal area. Even if you're in great signal, that's still going to draw more power than if you have it turned off. So, especially in areas where I'm in and out of service or no service, I put it into airplane mode. Greatly extends my phone's battery. Personally, I always carry, or almost always, I should say, carry an external power bank as well. You can find them at like gas station checkouts nowadays. They're pretty ubiquitous. I've got one from Dark Energy that I really like, Otter, Mophie. There's all kinds of different Gold Zero. There's all kinds of different brands that make one. I carry that as a backup, just so I can get an extra charge or two out of my phone if I need it. Trying to think of other questions we get with offline maps. Hey, can I still see my location? Can I still track myself? Can I still mark waypoints? Absolutely. The app's going to work offline nearly identically to how it does online. There's a few features that don't work offline, but the GPS receiver in your phone doesn't work off of cell signal or internet signal. It works on the same system as like a handheld GPS does. So you're still able to see your location even when you don't have service, even when you're in airplane mode. Still able to track yourself, still able to mark waypoints. Okay, speaking of waypoints, let's talk about those. There's a couple different ways to mark a waypoint. I'm just going to zoom in on my location here. I'm going to take a drink of water because I've been talking for an hour. Losing my voice. Okay, a couple different ways to mark a waypoint. Along the bottom of my screen, there's a button that says Tools. I'm going to tap on Tools, and in the middle there, the two middle ones on top, there's one that says Add Waypoint and one that says Mark My Location. If I tap Mark My Location, it's going to put a waypoint on my location. This is what I personally use 90% of the time when I'm out in the field. When I park the truck, especially if it's an area I've never been to before, I hit Mark My Location. So I have a marker for where the truck is. I do it when I place a tree stand or a duck blind. I'll do it if I find a wallow or a buck rub. I have a lot of markers placed where, I got a pheasant with my dog or something like that. So any place you want to remember and come back to, mark my location. But you might be foreseeing a problem here. This is showing me a red X. Great. 2 years from now, am I going to remember what I marked here? Probably not. The third kind of takeaway I hope you have from this class is to customize your waypoints. I don't shame people who just have a whole bunch of red X's on their map, but I want to. Again, talking about being efficient. If you have a whole bunch of red X's with no other information on them, and then you come back next fall and you're in that area, you're going to remember what all those mean? Maybe, but if you're like me, maybe not. So to edit a waypoint and customize it, tap on the waypoint. It's going to pull up this information card. Then along the bottom of my screen, I'm going to tap Edit. Here's where I can rename it. That's the first thing I do. This one is on the onX office where I'm broadcasting from, so I'm going to name it Office. Then I can change the icon or the look of the waypoint. So if I open up that menu, you can see we have like 90 some different waypoint icons, whole bunch of different species, different, trail camera, pack, tree stand, wallow, boat ramp, you name it. We don't have an office one, but I'm going to use house as a stand-in for that. All right. And then the third thing I like to do is change the color of my waypoints. And to me, color is almost more important than the icon type itself. I color code my waypoints based on species. We're lucky in Western Montana to have a ton of different animals to chase, big game, small game, and I do pretty much all of it. So there's no real wrong way to color code your waypoints besides not doing anything. Personally, I do it by species. So my bear spots are blue. My elk spots are brown. My upland bird spots are yellow, okay, on my personal account. That way I know at a glance, even if I'm zoomed out, I see yellow in my brain, it says up, it tells me upland bird. When I see green, that's waterfowl. The default kind of orange red, that's deer for me. So I know even without tapping on it, even without looking at the icon, I at least know that's elk, that's deer, that's pronghorn, etc. I think I'm in the minority on that. I'm going to save this right now. So here you can see what this looks like. I said my color coding, I'm kind of the minority. A lot of different ways to do it. A lot of people at the office here do it by year. So they would say, all right, 2024 was all purple. 2025 is going to be all yellow. 2026 is all blue. So that way they can see year over year how things change. If I was primarily hunting one species, if I was a deer hunter and I don't upland hunt, I don't turkey hunt, whatever, deer hunting's my jam. Awesome. I wouldn't do the species color coordination, right? What I would do is, let's say I had like a property or a hunt club or a deer lease that I was working on. I would maybe do my tree stands one color, my ground blinds another color, my water holes a different color, my gates a different, things like that, right? Whatever makes sense to you. So customize your waypoints. You're going to thank yourself later when you go out hunting next year, the year after, you know immediately, oh, that waypoint was on a buck rub. That waypoint was where I killed a deer last year. Let's say you want to mark a waypoint on a spot where you are not standing at currently. I'm just going to move the map away just so we can make this a little easier to see. Let's get out of town. All right. Just going to zoom in on this public. There's a couple different ways to mark a waypoint remotely, for lack of a better term. If I go back into my tools, I can tap add waypoint, and that's just going to add a waypoint in the middle of my map screen. Let's say that's not exactly where I want it. I can still move it just by tapping my finger on the map. Okay, so let's just say right there is where I want it, and the more I zoom in, more exact it can be, right? So let's say that's where I want it. Give it a name. This is January class. I'm just going to name it January. Oh, what should we put for the icon here? Let's go Sasquatch. That's always a fun one. And Sasquatch is going to be brown. And hit save. Another way to mark a waypoint. It's kind of a lot of clicks though, to tap on tools and then tap it. Another thing you can do is what's called a long press. I'm just going to hold my finger on the map. After it's like a second and a half, 2 seconds, a waypoint's going to be placed there. I've started doing that more and more, just that long press, add the waypoint. If you do this accidentally, don't worry though. If you're scrolling and just kind of leave your finger in one place, you get into a screen like this. In the upper left-hand corner, you can tap cancel. That's going to get rid of it. Last way to add a waypoint is just by tapping on the map. So I'm tapping on it just like we talked about querying the map earlier. I have that green dot there. I can tap along the bottom here. There's a button that says add waypoint. Tap that. Again, it's going to place a waypoint there. If I want to change where it is, same thing. Tap my finger. Now it's moving around the screen. Get it where I want it. Hit save. I'm just going to delete this one since I don't really need that waypoint there. Just wanted to demo that for you. All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over line distance and area shape. That is a bit beyond a 101. Do take a look at those. They're pretty cool where you can draw a line on the map and see how long something is and see kind of the elevation changes. Similar with area shape, it lets you draw polygons on the map. You can get the acreage of an area. So take a look at those, but we are going to move on. We're over an hour already here, so I want to be respectful of your time. Let's talk about the tracker. I'm going to get back to my location here. in the lower right-hand corner, there's a button that says tracker. Once I hit this start button, now the app is tracking where I go. And if I were walking, you would see a breadcrumb trail laid out behind me, kind of a light blue dashed line if I was walking or driving. Sitting in an office building, so this tracker demo, this is kind of what you get here, right? But it would show you your distance, your elevation gained, and your time. It's a big safety thing for me. I'm going to hit stop right now because I'm not going anywhere. But the tracker is great for a multitude of different things. Personally, I said for myself, safety. I can track everywhere I walk throughout the day so that I can find my way back out. And maybe I get to an area where there's a bunch of deadfall, or it's a real swampy area, or there's a cliffy area. I want to avoid it. I can see where my path, especially if I'm walking out in the dark, I can see where my path went around it when it was daylight, and I can see, oh, don't want to go there. You can also use tracks you can share them with other people. You can share tracks and waypoints and any other markups with other people. So here's an example for you. I've got a deer lease. I'm the one who sets up all the tree stands. I'm the one who kind of knows the area, and I want to bring a buddy out. I want to bring my dad out hunting with me, but he doesn't know this area very well. He doesn't know where the stands are. He doesn't know the entry and exit routes from the tree stands. I can share all those waypoints with him. I can text him a file basically that will put all those tree stand waypoints on his map. I can do the same thing with tracks. Okay, so I can share them all with him so he can see these are all the tree stands and here's your routes in and out of them so that, he doesn't accidentally walk through this swampy area, or he doesn't walk through the buck's bedding area and spooks him out or something like that. So to share a track or a waypoint, the process is the same no matter the markup. Tap on it. Although instead of typing edit or tapping on edit like we did earlier, I'm going to tap this share button. Now, share with a link is what you're going to select if you're going to text it to somebody. Hit next. Now, I'm on a tablet here that doesn't have cell signal, so text messaging isn't an option. It will be on your phone. You can hit text, and then it's just like if you were sharing a picture or something else. You choose from your contact list who you want to send this to. Once you text it, they'll receive a message on their phone that says, Jack wants to share a waypoint with you. They'll tap on it. It'll open onX on their phone and ask them if they want to add that to their map. When they say yes, that waypoint or that track or whatever will be visible on their map. You can email this, you can do it through Facebook or whatever you want. Text is the most common. So then they'll have all of that content on there that you want them to see. Doesn't share everything, doesn't share all of your waypoints, just the ones that you elect to share. And that person is not able to edit them at all. If you're familiar with using like a Google Doc, for example, you can share a Google Doc with somebody and give them view only access, or you can give them edit access. Right now, that person's only going to have view access. They can see it, but they can't share it with anybody else. They can't edit it. They can't change the color or anything. What they can do is they can view it. And if they don't want it on their map, they can always delete it from their map. But that doesn't delete it from your map. Okay. In the future, we'll have the ability to have like collaborative waypoints where I can share all the tree stand waypoints with everybody in my hunt club. And then as people move them around or, one's break or something, they can edit them. We're just not there quite yet, but that is coming. So I mentioned, sharing for safety too. Tracks and waypoints are huge for packouts and for just peace of mind. If you're a person who hunts solo like me, 90% of the time I'm going out by myself, a lot of times it's great to be able to just let somebody know where you're going, where you're going to be. So you can send a waypoint to your significant other, to your friend, to whomever, and say, hey, this is where I'm going hunting. This is where I plan to park the truck. I'm going to walk in north of here or whatever. If you don't hear from me by tonight, maybe something's happened. At least they know where to start kind of looking for you, right? On a happier note, if you're successful on a hunt, you might need help dragging a buck out or packing an elk out. You can send a waypoint, as long as you have service, of course. You can send a waypoint to your buddies. I did this last year. I was lucky enough to get an elk with my bow. I had a buddy who lived a little over an hour away. Said, "Hey, got a bull down. If you get a chance, I could use some help packing." Sent him the waypoint of where the truck was, sent him the waypoint of where I was with the elk, and sent him the track that I'd use to hike into that area. So he knew exactly where to go to park the truck, knew the exact fastest route to hike into me, knew exactly where I was. It was phenomenal. Of course, you have to have service for this, but it is pretty slick when you do have that option. Okay. Let's move on from sharing. We've got a couple more things to talk about before we get to the Q&A. Let's talk about finding your location on the map. I've been doing this whole time and haven't really been showing you how I've been doing it. So if you're looking at the map and you don't see your blue dot, how do you get back there? In the lower right-hand corner's location button. Looks like a crosshair. Tap on that. It's going to bring the map to your location and center your blue dot on the map. If I tap it one more time, now you see my map is rotating. This allows you to have whatever direction your phone or tablet is facing, that will be shown up on the map versus north always being up. So if you look at, my video here, I'm moving the tablet in my hand, I'm spinning it around, and you can see the map moving. This is something a lot of people don't know about, unfortunately. I wish more people did. It's like, man, it's so frustrating. North's always up on the map, but what if I'm driving south? If you go into this, I kind of call it heads up mode. When you're riding in a car or a side by side, or you're in a boat or you're hiking, you can always tell what's coming up, what's on my right, what's on my left. We need to take a fork in the road, just helps you more easily know, hey, we got to go right here. Or, you're a passenger in a car and you see a bunch of ducks in a field on your right-hand side. Hey, is that public? Is that private? Oh, sweet, it's public. Let's go. Things like that. So double check, double click, I should say, that button to get into that mode. To get out of it, just tap the button again. It brings you back to a north up orientation. If you had sharp eyes, you might have noticed when I was in heads up mode there, a third button showed up in my lower right-hand corner. That button looks kind of like a compass. You can tap on that to go into our compass mode. Now, compass mode's relatively new. It's been around for a little over a year. You can also get to compass mode by going to tools. That's easier for you. So what this does is it's kind of like that heads up mode. I can still move my map, still move my tablet, and it'll follow. Gives me a compass heading at the top. And on the left-hand side, it's showing me distances to those hash marks on this gray line that's coming out for me. It's a little bit tough to see because we're in town here and the street grid obscures it. But if you're out in the woods, it's much easier to tell the difference here. So let's say I have an animal that I'm going to shoot. I'm rifle hunting. I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, I was mule deer hunting eastern Montana. I spotted a bedded buck mule deer. I stalked in as close as I could comfortably get. I ranged the mule deer. It was 270 yards. That's within my comfortable rifle range. I had a great spot prone. I had a bipod and rear rest and felt solid, right? But the buck was bedded down and it wasn't a good shot, so I had to wait for him to stand up. While I was sitting there waiting, I utilized our rangefinder mode. In the lower right-hand corner, again, you see now there's a button that looks kind of like a handheld rangefinder. If I tap on that, this rangefinder mode allows me to drop a remote waypoint with a pretty good amount of precision. So in that scenario, I was laying there on the ground. I had my phone laid out. I pointed my phone at the mule deer buck. I knew it was 270 yards because I'd ranged it with my handheld rangefinder quite a bit. So what I can do is, if you see to the left here, there's kind of a waypoint icon, and you see my line is red on the bottom part. That's where I'm going to drop that waypoint, right? So 270 yards is right there. Let me get closer. There we go. Perfect. I hit this red square with the waypoint on it. Boom. It dropped a waypoint 270 yards away in the direction my phone was facing. I'm going to close out of this just so I can zoom in more. So if you need to zoom in closer, drag it all the way to the bottom. That's going to zoom you in. That's probably too far. As I zoom out, if I get to the top, now it's going to zoom me out. All right, so 270 yards. Obviously, we're in town. Use your imagination. Done. Done. Exit out of that. Now I have a waypoint where that buck is bedded. Had to wait there for an hour. A doe walked by the buck. He stood up. I shot him. He went over the ridge he was standing on, and all the does ran away. Buck wasn't with him. I felt good about the shot. Sounded good. But I didn't know for sure, right? I didn't see him laying there. What was great was I knew exactly where that buck was standing when I shot him. So I had to gather up my gear. I was in kind of this breaky country, climbed down to the creek bottom, kind of navigated my way through that winding creek a little bit, got up to the ridge he was standing on, saw dirt kicked up, walked over the other side. There he was. Would I have been able to find that deer without dropping this waypoint? Absolutely. But it made it a lot easier. You can use this for planning stocks is another example I give to people. Say I'm archery hunting and I spot an elk 500 yards away, way too far for archery gear, right? And I know I'm going to have to drop out of sight of this elk where he's maybe feeding in a park in an open area in some timber. I'm going to have to drop out of sight and maybe go around the back of the ridge or something to be able to get close enough for a shot. I can use this feature. I can drop a waypoint pretty close to where that elk is standing. Then at least I have a landmark for where I'm aiming for to plan this stock. I don't have to do any of that mental. Was when I'm looking at the map, was he in this opening? Was he in that opening? Was he by this tree or that tree? I've got a waypoint. It helps make me more efficient. Awesome. That's compass mode in a nutshell. I'm sorry I'm going fast, but I promise to try to keep this to 90 minutes, and we're coming up on that already. I'm going to stop sharing on my tablet, and I'm going to pull up my map on my computer here. Just give me one moment to get that pulled up. So with every account, you have access to the onX app, not only on a mobile device, but also on a computer. So this is the onX web map. You get to it by going to our website, www.onxmaps.com. That's going to bring you here. It's the same map that you have on your mobile device. You can see the waypoints I marked are here as well. They sync up. So any waypoints you mark on your mobile device will automatically show here, vice versa. Any waypoints you mark on your web map on your computer are going to show on your mobile device. So the web map I really like for scouting. I'm not, of course, bringing my computer with me when I'm out hiking around in the mountains, but it's a lot bigger screen. So when I'm doing some e-scouting, when I'm looking at maybe scouting out a new area, me personally, it's easier to visualize on this bigger screen than on my phone one. So I'm going to get to just an area with some public land here out in the mountains. And I want to talk about our base map options. So I'm going to go in the lower right-hand corner. And if you're on your mobile device, it's also in the lower right-hand corner. The button looks the same. Mine says SAT 2D. When I click on that, that's going to allow me to change the look of this base map. So right now I have satellite selected. This should be familiar to a lot of folks. It's a satellite image similar to Google Earth or other imagery providers. Shows me what the terrain looks like, or at least what the vegetation looks like, and the rocks and things like that, and the roads. Fantastic. But it doesn't quite tell the whole story. We're in the Rocky Mountains. We're in western Montana. If I click on topo, no, I'm not seeing the satellite imagery, but I'm seeing the elevation changes, right? That can be when I'm scouting for bear or elk or deer, the elevation sometimes can be more important than the vegetation. You know, I might be looking for saddles, those low spots in between the high points where animals like to walk because they're saving energy, they're efficient. I might look for a bench, a flat area on a north facing slope because elk like to bed there in hot weather. It's going to be flat and cold. That's a popular spot for archery hunters in September. I might be looking for a south facing slope like this in the winter when a bunch of snow comes because there might not be as much snow on them. Or spring bear hunting, that's what I look for because that's what greens up the earliest. Okay. Now, wouldn't it be sweet if you could have satellite imagery and topography in one map? Well, you know where I'm going with this. The hybrid map shows you both of those. The hybrid map's what I use most of the time. I frankly never use satellite because I like having those terrain lines on my map. I guess I shouldn't say never. I do use it sometimes when those lines, if I really want to just clear things up. Personally, I don't find that they obscure my view all that much. So here I can see, oh, you know, that might actually be a decent bear spot. South facing, not a lot of trees. This spot's probably going to have snow melt off earlier than the rest of the surrounding terrain. It's probably going to have green grass. You know, I've never hunted this spot and there's not a whole lot of roads to get me close. So it's not likely that I'm going to, but maybe someday. So those are your three options: satellite, hybrid, and topo. You can always switch between them and they're all available for use when you're offline as well. So you can switch between them even when you don't have service. If you're an elite member, I mentioned earlier there were some differences between premium and elite. Elite gets you access to a few different options down here. This HD topo is the first one I want to talk about. This one's brand new. It's only available on web right now. We will be rolling it out for mobile users hopefully later this year. But take a look at the difference here between the regular topo and the HD. It tells a different story. It's a lot more detailed, right? You can even see, you know, some of these ridges so much better. You can see, you know, just the different undulations in the topography there. I think it's pretty sweet, and I'm going to be using the heck out of this for my scouting. This will probably get me to use the topo map a lot more than I was previously. So again, only on web map right now. We'll be on mobile later on. Let's talk about these two imagery options as well. So I'm going to click over to satellite imagery. I'm going to turn on recent imagery. Again, this one is an elite only feature, so you do have to have that elite membership. What this is satellite imagery that's updated every 2 weeks, but it's different imagery than our base map imagery. So what I'm trying to say here is this is kind of another piece of the puzzle for you when looking at the map. Let me find an area. You can see there were some clouds when this imagery was taken. So it's not foolproof. Let me really get out of here. I'll go down by Yellowstone. There's usually pretty good imagery. So it's not as crisp as our base map imagery. It's not supposed to be. Well, that's not the right way to say it. That's the trade-off. Our regular satellite imagery is done via flyover with some pretty sophisticated cameras and airplanes and all that. This is taken via satellite from space. So the trade-off with the recency is the detail level. So it's not meant to replace our regular satellite imagery. It's meant to be kind of an addition to. But what's cool with this is you can get a sense of, this time of year, hey, where are the snow levels at? In the fall, I use it pheasant hunting to see when are the crops coming out? Is the corn out yet or not? You can use it to check water levels for waterfowl hunting, or, maybe in the spring if there's flooding. I mentioned spring bear hunting. I do that quite a bit in Montana. I'll use it this spring to see, hey, can I get my truck into this area? Is there still a whole bunch of snow up there? You can also go back in time. So along the bottom of my screen here, I can go back in 2-week increments to view all of this imagery. You see, as I get out of here, not as much snow, right? You can use it to check spring green up. You can use it to check if the leaves have fallen for you rough grouse hunters. A lot of different uses for this. And again, that's nationwide. If you've got the elite membership, you have access to this. Or I should say it might only be lower 48. I should have checked on that beforehand before saying nationwide. I know for sure lower 48. I think we have it in Alaska and Hawaii. Don't quote me on that. Okay, last imagery option I want to talk about is our leaf off imagery. Again, this is an elite only feature. So if you want access to this, you do have to have that elite membership. But our leaf off imagery, it's not available in every state right now. I believe we're at 15, all of them east of the Rockies, the kind of the heart of the deciduous forest in America. But this was in response to customer feedback saying, man, all of my imagery is taken in the summer. That's not when I'm hunting. I want imagery that's taken in the fall or the winter. It's a little bit more difficult for us to source. That's why we don't have it nationwide just yet. We are constantly looking to add additional states. I know we're going to be adding some more this year. But as you can see in this area of Wisconsin, it's really nice to be able to tell where the deciduous trees are and where the coniferous trees are. So you can take a look at that. And the detail level on it is quite good. This one is pretty detailed. So if I lived in Wisconsin, I might use leaf off imagery almost all the time, certainly in the fall, right? What does it look like in states where we don't have imagery? We'll go to my home state of Minnesota. If we don't have it for your state, you're going to know it right away. We'll tell you no leaf off imagery available. Okay, so, and we're not picking on any states. If we don't have your state, it's not like we're saying, we don't care about Minnesota. It's just that there wasn't like a good option available for us at the time. So like I said, we want to have as much coverage as we can. So we're going to keep adding more of that leaf off imagery as it becomes available to us. All right. Last thing before we get to Q&A, let's talk about the search. You can search for, the one question I get quite a bit is, how do I mark a waypoint from a set of coordinates that I have? Well, here's how we do it. Go into the search, and on mobile, this is going to be in the upper right-hand corner. So on your mobile device, it looks like a magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner. Make sure location is selected. And then if you have coordinates, and you can copy and paste them. You can copy and paste them in there. I'm just going to type in some random ones. We recommend doing this in decimal format. That's going to work the best. If you have them in DMS or UTM or something else, there's a lot of free converters online. Use one of those, plug them in, convert it to decimal. So your first number is going to be a positive number if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, which I'm going to assume everybody watching is. Your second number is going to be a negative number. So you have to have that dash in front of it for the Western Hemisphere. If you don't put the dash in front, it's going to take you to the Eastern Hemisphere. And you're going to end up in Europe or Central Asia or Africa or somewhere. And if you're a hunter in North America, that's probably not what you're looking for. Again, just typing in random numbers here, hit enter. I have this result down here. Click on it. It's going to bring me to those coordinates. Okay. From there, if I want to mark a waypoint on that exact spot, down here along the bottom, add waypoint, and there we are. So that's how you search for coordinates, and that's how you can mark a waypoint there. You can also search for landmarks. So Glacier National Park. Got a bunch of different results here. We'll click this first one. If I zoom out a bit, you can see I am in Glacier National Park. National parks, lakes, towns, counties, mountain peaks. Those are all examples of things you can search for in here. Let's say I'm searching for a person, a landowner. I want to see where their land is. I go into search. Now I have private land selected. I'm just going to type in John Smith, just a generic name. I have all my results here. As you might expect, there's a lot of John Smiths, but you'll notice these are all in Montana. At least the first 7, 8 of them are. And then we get into Idaho, Montana. The map is going to prioritize search results close to what you are looking at. So this is Kalispell, Whitefish. We're in Northwest Montana. It's going to show the John Smiths that are closest to Whitefish, Kalispell, Montana. Okay. So if I was looking for a John Smith in Maryland, I'd want to move my map to Maryland. If I was looking for John Smith in Hawaii, move my map to Hawaii. You get it. Give the map some help. The closer you can get, the better your results are going to be here. And then if you want to take a look, just click on the results. That's showing me a property owned by a John Smith. Maybe that's not it. I go back, click on the next result. It's going to zoom me there. That's not it. Click back. Maybe it's this one. Okay. You might have to do a few clicks to find the exact one you're looking for. If you know John Smith's middle initial, let's say it's M, that can help. Okay. There's a bunch of John M. Smiths. If it's a married couple and you know both names on the deed, try plugging those in. Things like that. The more information you can give the search, the better off you're going to be here. All right. We are at 7 o'clock. That is over 90 minutes. Let's get into the giveaway quickly. I'm going to ask Eli if he can post the giveaway link in the chat. I will also post it up on the screen here momentarily. So we're giving away some onX Hunt bandanas. Go to this website here in white. That'll also be posted in the chat. Giving away 10 of these suckers. I'll email all of the winners tomorrow. So if you don't hear from me, sorry you didn't win. Please don't email customer support. They don't know who won. They're busy, helping other folks with app issues. And while I'm on the topic of customer support, do give us an email if you do have questions about the app, if you have issues, if you need help with anything. Our email address is help@onxmaps.com. And I'm biased, but our customer support team is second to none. All US based folks, most of them are here in Missoula or the surrounding area. If you send us an email tonight, you can expect an answer tomorrow. We strive to answer all of our emails within 24 business hours. So if you send an email in an evening after work, that next day sometime, you can expect an email back from us. So again, customer support email is help, HELP, @onxmaps.com. So get entered. Some of the fine print, you got to enter by midnight tonight. If you're watching this on the YouTube recording after January 15th, I'm sorry. Giveaway has closed, but sign up for a future class. We do different giveaways at just about all of them. If you don't have a current onX Hunt membership, if you're a basic or a trial member, and you want to get a premium or an elite membership, we have some money savings for you. If you use this promo code app101 on our website, that'll save you 30% off that first year. So again, app101 has to be used on our website. Can't be used at the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. If you try to use a promo code in the App Store or the Play Store, they're going to charge you full price. Then you're probably going to email customer support because you didn't get your 30% off, and they're going to I mean, we'll get it figured out for you. We'll take care of you, but you might as well make it easy on yourself. onXmaps.com. There'll be a button there, or not a button, but a blank there, a space for you to type in that promo code. If you do have any trouble, if you're not finding it, if it's not making sense, shoot us an email or give us a call, and we'll get that promo code applied for you again, just for the first year there if you don't have a current membership. You want to learn more, our website is another great spot. We have all kinds of tutorials. If you're more of you like to learn more from written word than from some bearded guy talking at you, check that out. Our YouTube channel's also great. We have just some entertaining hunt films on there you're going to like, but we have a whole lot of demos, product and feature specific demos. That's also where all of our previous onX Hunt masterclasses are. They're all in a playlist. So if you go to the onX Hunt YouTube channel, go to the onX Hunt Masterclasses playlist. We're going into our 4th year of doing these classes. It's kind of crazy to believe, but we've got, of course, the old 101s there, but our species specific ones. So turkey season's coming up. We've got classes on that. We've got a bear hunting class. We've got elk hunting, elk calling, meat care, dog training, pheasant hunting, grouse hunting, quail hunting, deer hunting, archery deer hunting, you name it. We've probably got a class for you there. And if we don't, let us know. I'm always looking for new topics, stuff we haven't covered. We want to provide as much education as we can for folks. Some classes we have coming up. Hunt Research Tools 101, something we didn't talk about here, but is one of your elite benefits. If you have an elite membership, you have access to our draw odds tool for Western big game draws. If you're looking to apply in Montana, Utah, Arizona, you name it, we have that tool for you to see your draw odds and all the different point layouts and things. So we're going to be teaching you how to use that class. We're doing some classes with our friends at the Huntin' Fool to go more in depth on specific draws. Colorado made some big changes to their draw this year, so we're going to talk about that. That'll be in February. You can go to this website here to always check those out. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and see if we had any other burning questions Eli thought we should answer live. Oh, here's a good one I didn't talk about. How do I delete a waypoint? I'm going to pull up the map on my tablet again to show you how to delete a waypoint. Give me one moment to pull that up. Come on. All right. So let's say I want to delete this waypoint. Tap on it. It's going to bring up my menu there. Along the bottom of my screen to the far right, there's a button that says delete. If you don't see that on your mobile device, it might be a limitation of your screen size. You might have to swipe over to see that delete button. If you're still not seeing it or you're not able to swipe, tap edit and tap delete. That's going to delete that button for you. All right. Someone said, I was hoping he would cover the line distance button. Well, let's cover it. So line distance, if I go into tools, upper left-hand corner, I'm going to tap line distance. Now I have a crosshairs on my map. This is going to help me drop the points on my line. If I tap this drop point button on the left side of my screen, it's going to be the start of my line. I'm going to move the map, drop the point. There's the second point on my line. If I'm done, I can hit save. You can keep adding points if you want. It's going to show you the distance in between all of those points, okay? So let's say that's the line I want to draw. Hit save. Now I have that saved there. So when I tap on it, it's going to tell me how long it is, 232.9 yards. It's also going to give me an elevation profile. Now, being on the valley floor here in Missoula, not too exciting, pretty flat. But if you're in the mountains, it'll show you the up and down of everywhere that line crossed. So pretty cool there. You can edit your lines just like you can every other piece of content. You can rename it. You can change the color. You can change the style and the weight. You can make it dotted. Okay. And you can share that just like you can a waypoint. So that's the line distance tool, kind of in a nutshell. If I send a waypoint or my location to someone, do they need to have onX? Excellent question. The answer is yes and no. So they don't have to have onX. What will happen if you send a waypoint to somebody and they don't have onX? It will prompt them to download it. It's free to download. You'll have to create an account and all that and start a free trial. And then once they have the app downloaded, then they'll be able to accept that share and have it on their phone. So in my example I used earlier, if you are sharing a waypoint with a loved one back home, they're not a hunter, they don't really need an onX subscription, they can still have the free version and they can still accept that share. So they can at least see, where that waypoint is that you sent to them. Is there a way that I can remove access to a waypoint that I shared? Yes, you can. So if you share a waypoint with somebody, well, let me back up. Unfortunately, I can't demo it. I don't have any shared waypoints on this test device, on this account. But if you share a waypoint or a track with somebody, once they accept it, you'll see the list. It'll say shared with John, George, Tim, Sarah, whoever. That will then allow you to remove those people. You can revoke access to a waypoint from them at any time. If you don't want them to have, the waypoint to your super secret spot, you can always remove that from them. All right, it is 7:11 Montana time, so we're coming up on 2 hours here. I think this is a record. I want to thank everybody again for joining us tonight. Can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And if you do have any other questions, again, shoot us an email to help@onxmaps.com. Check out the future masterclasses, even if you want to just watch a 101 again. You really like the sound of my voice that much, I guess. But check out some of the other ones. We are going to be adding some more application ones this spring. We're going to get into turkey hunting late February, March, and then, more topic specific, big game, small game, all that stuff as the season gets closer to that fall season and everything. So we'll be doing some species specific, pursuit specific ones as well. So check back there. And before I completely lose my voice, I'm going to sign off. And thanks again, everybody, and hope you have a good evening.